Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Wild Wisdom Wellbeing guest slot. And I'm Robin Harris, founder of Equenergy. This is my group, Wild Wisdom Wellbeing. And today I am absolutely delighted because I have the wonderful, lovely Sarah Alder of Kitchen Titbits joining us today to talk about reduction of food waste and supporting fussy eaters. And Sarah, if I just introduce you. I know that you are a meal planning and family meal times expert, and that your focus is on moving them from stressful to stress-free, which I think is such an important thing. To be able to eat in a stressless, stress-free environment is so good for our well-being. And also that you're a kitchen mentor and that you teach meal planning and how to save time and energy and reduce the food waste in your kitchen, therefore your food bills, and all of those wonderful, wonderful things that we really want to know about at this time. And to take away the stress of that question, what's for dinner?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Sometimes.
Well, it can be very, very tough. And as I was saying just earlier, to support those parents who have fussy eaters, because some kids really can have a very restricted sense of what they will and won't eat, don't they? And then what I really, really loved in the information you sent me was that you put the fun back into meal times, because I think fun is such an important part of our lives. So having done that introduction, sort of the formal introduction, I'd love you just to share a little bit about who is Sarah and how did Kitchen Titbits come about?
Well, thank you, Robin. It's a pleasure to be in your group. Thank you for inviting me and for such a lovely introduction. So I am Sarah, and I'm a mum of two children. Harvey's just turned 8 and Alexis is just 3. We live in Bristol with my husband. And we're absolutely freezing right now.
It's been so cold.
Well, Kitchen Titbits came about just under 3 years ago now, and I left my job running a business with a friend of mine after my daughter was born. It was clear to me during mat leave, well, probably before that, but most certainly during mat leave, that the passion after 16 years of doing that job had gone. And it was starting to make me ill and stressed and depressed, and I was dreading going back. So rather than wait out my plan to start stepping back 3 to 5 years from where I was, I decided it was time to just do something different right there and then. And I brought forward my plans. And that's when I set up Kitchen Titbits as a business. And it was really taking what was a blog and a hobby and turning it into a business. And here I am now, absolutely loving everything that I'm doing and helping so many more people than I could even ever have imagined when I set about it. And it was one of those things. It was a passion. I wanted to give it a go. I would really regret it if I hadn't have done it. And so yeah, my business really is about my way of sharing my knowledge and passion for all things kitchen related with others. I really was privileged to be able to have been brought up in the kitchen by mum and grandma, and learned so much from them. And so many people these days just don't have those opportunities either at home or at school. And haven't learned the fundamental, what I think are fundamental life skills that I teach now. So yeah.
And I love all of what you're sharing there about the taking that leap, because it's a leap of faith and it takes courage, but that it has turned out to be, really listening to your body has taken you on that journey that, as you say, now means that you're living this life, you're fulfilling that dream that you would have always regretted if you hadn't, and you're supporting so many people in an area which I think is so essential. Like you say, that the kitchen is the heart of the home, it's the heart of the family, potentially, and that you can share those fundamental Yeah, that you can share those fundamental learnings that, you know, bring a family together, plus your kids are going to grow up and they're going to share that with their kids, and all those precious memories. I look back on my childhood and I too was very fortunate to have a mum who loved baking and taught me to bake, and all of those happy memories in the kitchen. I'm sure they're very messy memories, but that was all part of the fun, doing all that
Absolutely.
baking and
Yeah, so
flour
many of
everywhere.
my memories are smells from the kitchen.
Yes, so evocative, aren't they, to
Yeah,
for our memories smell.
yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So when you talk about fundamental life skills that you teach, can you tell us a little bit more about those? What do you think are the fundamental skills?
Yeah, so most of the time I'm starting with meal planning, so teaching about meal planning as a way to save money, to reduce food waste, like you said earlier, saving time and energy in the kitchen, but also it enables us to eat better and a wider variety of foods. And, you know, many living on a budget, if you're meal planning, actually you can eat like a king on a budget if you're thinking about it and preparing and planning ahead. I teach about reducing food waste as a way of saving money, making the most of what you're buying, and reducing your impact on the environment. So it's not just a money saving thing. I think there's a lot to be learned for helping protect the environment. Another thing that I do is teaching people to cook and building confidence in the kitchen. And so many just haven't had time as we had with mum in the kitchen, and just aren't confident. And I work with them one-to-one and in small groups, just to give them that confidence, that boost, and the knowledge of how to cook intuitively. So not having to rely on a recipe, which adds stress to it. Following a recipe can be really stressful. But it's about knowing how to cook intuitively and by taste and by looking at what's happening as you cook, and being able to understand ingredients that go together so that you can go to the fridge and just use up what's there, rather than thinking, oh, I don't know what to do with it and it's going in the bin. And then the other side, as you've mentioned, is supporting parents of fussy eaters, to take the stress away from meal times and support them to help their fussy eaters develop a love of food and a positive relationship with food, so they're not growing up feeling like they have to clear their plate, that they have to reward themselves with pudding to and those kind of things, and ultimately increasing the number and variety of foods that they're eating, which we know that for gut health, having that huge variety in our diets is really important. So.
Yeah, because actually we're not feeding ourselves solely, we're feeding the microbes, we're feeding that gut biome. So it's feeding the healthy aspects of that gut biome, so that it therefore supports our well-being. And food, it can be such a tricky issue, can't it? Because as you say, we reward ourselves with pudding and we force ourselves to clear our plate, which is all minor, or to a greater or lesser degree depending on your experience, but can be quite traumatic as a child. My mum describes being forced to eat broad beans, which she just can't abide anymore, and being given worming tablets by her grandmother in strawberry jam, so she can't eat strawberry jam anymore. So we have all these associations and sometimes hang-ups around food, and food isn't something that we can just stop. We have to eat to live. So when we can have a healthy relationship with food and build these fun, happy, supportive memories, I think it's so good, and like you say, supportive of our well-being. And just when you were talking about fussy eaters there, it reminded me of my mum's friend's son, who as a child was labelled a fussy eater, but then one night they took a takeaway. I think it was a curry takeaway, and he was, can I have a bit? And they were thinking, he's too young, it's too spicy, he won't like it, he's a fussy eater. He went on to become the family cook, because he got one taste of that, and whether his taste buds just needed that something, all the flavors that you can get in a curry, all the different spices, and that mixture that just comes together in that wonderful blend, but it just lit him up. He became so enthusiastic about food, which had been an enemy. How it can become a real stressful time at the table.
Very true that we kind of steer away from spices when we're weaning, and actually, keep it low key with the chili. But there are so many fragrant spices that we can introduce, and we don't generally as adults eat bland food. So why would we give our babies bland food? They do need to get to know the natural tastes of vegetables and other foods that they're eating, but very early on start to introduce flavors and let them eat as you would eat. I think is really important. And
I'm not a great chili fan, but I love curry. I love spices. I'm not too fond of the really hot ones. So when there's chili in it, I find that overpowering. But I like the blend of all the different spices, and there's a lot of them. I mean, I know that with weaning and things, maybe you're sensitive to the fact that your child is younger and their taste buds and their digestion is different. But there are a lot of the spices that add flavor. They add things that support our well-being. They support our digestion. So fennel seed, for example, I use that quite a lot. I don't like aniseed, but just in little bits, I think it works really well. And ginger, which can be very warming in cold days like this. All these wonderful ways in which we can use food. And was it Hippocrates who was saying, let food be your medicine? So I think what you offer has so many layers of richness.
Thank you. I hope so.
So when people are struggling with their meal planning, what sort of ways do you support them? What do you offer around that area?
Yeah, so I work with people one-to-one to provide support, and I get to know what their challenges are, and really tailor and structure the sessions around what they need. I'm a strong believer that there's several ways to skin the meal planning cat, and just because meal planning hasn't worked the first time you've done it doesn't mean that meal planning doesn't work, or that it isn't for you. Actually, it's about finding a way that does work for you in your lifestyle, and being able to turn it into something that you can stick with. And I also offer online courses and a meal planning power hour, so just a real quick deep dive and just to get you started. And then there's resources on my website as well, downloads with top tips of meal planning success, and also a ready-made meal plan as well for different diets. So 1 week meal plan, all done for you, the pressure taken away, have a week off.
And I love that you're basically saying one size doesn't fit all, that each family is going to have its own dynamic, who's working, when are they coming and going, who's at school, what hours are they doing, what after school activities are they doing, those days when there just isn't the time to cook and barely time to sit down together as a family or whatever, and that you cater for all the different varieties.
Not everybody has an interest in cooking. Not everybody has that passion for it. So, there are ways to do meal planning which mean you reduce how often you're cooking, and again, taking care. And it's just not just what's going on in your life, but how do you think and how do you react? Some people are fly by the seat of the pants kind of people, and meal planning to them is just so rigid. But actually, you can have meal planning structure and still fly by the seat of your pants during the week. But just having a little bit of structure means that you can shop for what you need, and you've got the ingredients there, so that and a set of meals that you can go to without having to find that headspace at dinner time to think, what am I going to cook? And opening that fridge and expecting it to tell you what's for dinner.
Not unless you've done one of your workshops or whatever, and you can look in there and go, that can make this. Then you can get that inspiration.
Planning and structure goes in to get to that point.
Absolutely. Yeah. What I meant was you have that prep that gets you to that point. And I love the way you say there that it depends on your personality as much as anything else, because I'm one of those people, I don't like it has to be. My mum's family when she was growing up was Monday was this, Tuesday was this, Wednesday was this. And I probably do kind of live not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but I have my set meals. But I don't like to be told that I'm having that meal on that day. I like to at least pretend to myself that I'm being quite spontaneous. But yes, so you have those things that you fall back on when there's just, I'm too tired to even think about it today. Of course, really and then you have the times where you just go to the cupboard and inspire me.
Yeah, and you need to have gone through a process to know what those are, but also to have the opportunities through meal planning to extend that repertoire of go-to dishes. But if you're not planning and you're not thinking about things that you could be cooking, then that repertoire is always going to be really small. And actually, the average person eats just 6 meals on repeat. So 6 meals week in, week out. And it really is no wonder so many come to me saying that they're stuck in a rut and they're bored at dinner time. It's just
rescue me from dinner time boredom.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's again where the fundamentals come in, like you were saying, to learn how to cook by feel. But I love that idea that you're not cooking from a recipe, you're cooking from love, you're cooking from just inspiration and intuition and just flying by the seat of your pants. And then even though you're maybe cooking the same meal, it'll maybe have just a slightly different nuance, or you can add something that I've never tried this vegetable before or whatever. It gives you that flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just helps with the confidence, and it helps when you're not really sure what to cook as well. Thinking about ingredients that go together, but if you haven't experimented with them, it's really hard to know those things and know what you like. Just because a recipe says that it needs to include these ingredients doesn't mean that that's right for your palate. And actually you can learn by experimenting that doesn't work for me, but that does work for me by doing this to it.
And having that permission, giving yourself permission. I can take that one out and put this one in or whatever. I just wanted to say hi as well. We've had some comments there. I don't know if you can see them at your end. Unfortunately, it's just coming up with Facebook users, so I don't know who it is, but hello, it's lovely to have you with us. So do you have any tips for just starting out with meal planning?
Yeah, so I think that's the toughie from a lot of people. They realise that they need to do some meal planning, but just have got no idea where to start, and then struggle with the idea of being able to stick with it. And meal planning to me is a habit, and it's a good habit to get into. But like all habits, they take practice, don't they?
They do.
And with practice they become easier and quicker as well. So my first tip would be to schedule some time in your calendar to actually make it happen. If it's there as a task, then it's more likely to happen.
As with anything,
weekly or fortnightly, whatever you need, reminder pops up. And until you're in that habit and you know it's something that needs to happen, just like brushing your teeth. Do it when it makes sense for you. So there's no point in saying, I'm going to do my meal planning on a Sunday evening, if that's not when your head is in the game. If you're exhausted, you're thinking about getting ready and relaxing for the week ahead, then that's not the time to be doing it. So, find when is going to be good for you. So that could be in your lunch break. It could be on a weeknight after you've got home from work, where your head's still in that kind of focused work frame of mind. You could break it down into chunks and do a little bit, 10 minutes here and there throughout the week, again, to make it more manageable. Bite-sized pieces are usually a lot easier to deal with and less overwhelming. And the other thing to do is perhaps do it whilst you're having dinner, a discussion over the dinner table. Your mind's already in it, and actually it's kind of that habit stacking or habit tagging. So tagging on to something you're already doing helps to make things become habitual so much easier. I know we talk about it quite a lot with exercise and other things, but it's the same with meal planning.
With anything, yeah.
So and finally, it's just a case of doing it. Just make a start, and like so many things, stop putting it off and just do it, because the thought of it is way worse than actually doing it. And you put it off, put it off, and actually you could have had it done in 15-20 minutes.
And the more you put it off, the bigger and more
it seems
kind of off-putting it feels to you. And like you say, you can do it in little bite-sized pieces. It doesn't have to be all at once. And once you start and get into the swing of it, and also once you start, you might think, this one doesn't work for me, but there are other options. If you try one way, it doesn't mean, like you say, that meal planning doesn't work for you. It's just, okay, that didn't work, but maybe this element did, and maybe I'll try that other technique as well.
There's lots of ways to approach it, and you don't have to structure the whole 7 breakfasts, 7 lunches, 7 dinners, and say that Monday is this and Tuesday is that. You can just pick a mix, or as you get into the habit, you can say, okay, well, I'm good with planning dinner. I don't need to plan lunch, because actually I can think of the hoof that I could make extra here and extra there, and that'll take care of those lunches. I've got the oven on here, so I can stick a potato in for that day. And the more you do it, the more that becomes natural. And so you don't have to put the full effort in and feel restricted by it.
And what you were just saying there about, I've got the oven on, I'll put a potato in, or I'll cook this that I can then use cold the next, whatever. That's something that if you haven't done the planning, the next day you might have gone, I could have been having this if only I'd have thought last night when I had the oven on to have cooked that to go with it.
But if you haven't done the planning, you haven't bought that extra to be able to do that.
Or even just stuck it in the oven. It's sitting there in the fridge looking at you cold. When it could have been cooked. So why are you so passionate about food waste?
So reducing our food waste can have a really positive impact on both our bank balances and the environment. And the way I like to look at it is that you wouldn't throw a £5 note in the bin, so why throw your food in the bin? And as I said earlier, people are looking to cut back on their food spending and tighten budgets, and making the most of the food that you're buying and reducing your food waste is a really easy way to achieve that. And there's some really simple ways in which we can both prevent and reduce food waste. So I'm keen to just share as much of that as possible with people. Now, I'm not expecting people to go from creating food waste to zero waste. I think for so many that's just not achievable, and I don't do that. But it's about giving them enough tips and pointers in the right direction, and just opening the mind to just being more creative with what you've got and what you might be able to do with it, just to make the most of what we're buying. And it's about picking just 2 or 3 things to start with that you think that you can do. And again, it's about building the good habits. So it's what can you do to become habitual, and then pick another couple and just build and build and build gradually over time. But as well, it's just everybody doing a few small things can have a huge huge impact and a massive collective change. So and I
Definitely.
think it's so important to look after our resources.
Yes,
You know, depleting
definitely.
resources, and yeah, I mean, we've just become accustomed to easy access to so much, and actually, we really need to look after what we've got for our future and for our children.
Yeah, I agree completely. Looking at where our food comes from, how it's produced, how we're using it, and not just over, taking stuff that we then throw away because it has gone to waste. But do you have a top tip that you can share that'll maybe either start people off if they haven't been looking at reduction of food waste, or that we could add if we're already conscious but maybe feeling we could do a little bit more?
Yeah, so simple things are around. I've said it a lot this interview, but about making the most of the ingredients you've got. And one of the ways to do that is to make use of the whole ingredient. So root veg, for example, do you really need to peel it? Can you scrub it? And you're eating the skins. There's extra nutrients in the skin and just under it.
Fiber.
You're going to take that off if you peel it. But that's by peeling it, you're creating needless waste. But if you feel you have to peel it, then keep them and put them in the freezer. And as your amount builds up, you can then use that to create a stock, which in turn can be frozen until you need it. Or if you've got the oven on, those peelings on a tray with a drizzle of olive oil, a bit of salt and pepper, and you turn them into crisps. Absolutely amazing. And such a lovely snack or extra crunch on the top of your dish. And there are so many things like that, making use of the ingredients. So a squeezed lemon or orange or lime, for example. There's so much flavour still left in that zest and that peel, which you can put to good use. And that can be as simple as just dropping it in a glass of water to flavour your water. And again, they can be kept in the freezer and used whenever you need them. If you're dropping it into water, you've got flavour and you've got an ice cube. You can use them to make herbal teas. One of my favourites is to use the squeezed lemon halves to create preserved lemons. I absolutely adore preserved lemons from Moroccan cooking. And the beauty there is with a preserved lemon, when you buy it, actually it's just the rind that you're using in your cooking or your salads. So a squeezed lemon half is perfect for creating your own, and all you need is the squeezed lemons, salt and boiling water and a jar, sterilized jar, and you're away. Absolutely delicious addition to salads and tagines.
And full of vitamin C, which is so good to have at this time of the year. Love the peeling ideas. Not sure our rabbit will be happy though. Oh bless, we're depriving the rabbit of his peelings.
That to me is not waste though. If you're using the peelings and they're going to the rabbit, or the guinea pigs is the other one that comes up for me a lot, is I'm stealing food from the guinea pigs. But that's not going to waste for me. That's putting it to good use. So yeah, don't be stealing.
It's just another family member that's having a meal. It might be a four-legged family member, but somebody's still eating them.
And actually, my son absolutely loves getting involved in making the most of what we've got. He's really got on board with it, and at the moment, his favourite is using the apple cores. So when he has his apple for a snack, he still wants it cut up, but we keep the cores and we put them in a cafetiere with a stick of cinnamon. And he has apple and cinnamon tea, which is absolutely delicious. But yeah, the core would get discarded, but we've made the most of it, but before it has been thrown out. So it really is thinking beyond the food waste bin, what can I do? And there's so many things that are really easy to do like that.
And even the things that most people would think aren't usable, that often if we talk about reducing food waste, you might think of just, that last piece of cauliflower or whatever that's gone a bit rubbery and I don't think it's edible anymore. You know, those
Yes,
things
it is.
that
I
they've
roast
just they've just sat in the fridge a little bit too long, rather than the peelings or the core, which we think, oh well, that's not a bit that we
Yeah.
eat anyway.
Yeah,
But obviously it can be.
yeah, and so there's so much more to it. So there's eating the whole ingredient. There's, as you say, making use of every last little bit that you've got. With that cauliflower, yeah, I would put it on a roasting tray with some spices and make use of there and stick it in a curry maybe. But again, like there's the leaves of a cauliflower, for example, which many would just discard, and you know, roasted off, they go crispy and absolutely delicious. Or you can chop them up and put them through a stew, much the same as you would with spinach. But also there's the preventing it going to waste by storing things properly. So things like herbs, which would go off really quickly, wrapping them as soon as you get them in damp tea towel and storing them in a Tupperware box in the fridge just helps them last longer. Carrots, that's another one of my favorites, is as soon as you get them, put them in a Tupperware box, cover with cold water, and again in the fridge, and that stops them going that crinkly, wrinkly, floppy,
Rubbery.
so where if they're just left in the fridge in the veg tray for a week, they can go in just a week. They can go like that. But you know, it's about getting you from one shop or one veg box to the next. It's not about extending the life so much that you're completely losing the nutritional value. But there's those bits that take you from one shop to the next and prevent you. I mean, so many people would be put off eating that crinkly, wrinkly carrot, but actually you can stop it getting to that point with a few simple steps. And then I've got loads more tips like that in a download. If anyone is interested, I can drop the link in the comments afterward.
That would be wonderful to share, I think. Absolutely. And then moving on to the fussy eaters, what do you offer in support for all those parents out there who are finding meal times very stressful, pulling their hair out, worrying about their kids getting a decent nutrition intake?
Yeah, so and there's a lot out there and it really is tough, and I think so many of during lockdown as well have just seen felt that pressure even more. So again, I work with parents one-to-one, or I was pre-lockdown doing small group workshops, and I love the small group workshops. They're around my dining room table. It's where it all happens, so it's a really nice environment in which to learn and take that pressure off. But I've translated that into an online program now, which I deliver through Facebook in a closed group. But it really does translate that face-to-face workshop and community vibe that you get in an online environment. So yeah, several ways to work with me there with the fussy eaters.
And do you have a really kind of broad general tip that you could give just as a starting point for parents out there?
Yeah, don't give up. Don't give up.
Very good.
If they're not eating it, don't give up offering it. Keep on offering. Being consistent and persevering really is one of the keys to overcoming the fussy eating. So yeah, don't stop offering it just because they're not eating it.
And like we were talking about before, maybe try things that you wouldn't have expected, like my mum's friend's son who went for curry, totally unexpected by everybody, or the taking the stress out of it and just making it fun. It's not a you must eat this, you must clear your plate.
No, and that comes from getting involved in the kitchen, and actually, you know, it's so much more fun stealing something off the chopping board whilst mum's got their back turned than it is eating it off your plate at the dinner table.
So true.
And the other thing is to reframe it. So rather than it being dinner time, I kind of talk on my courses about it being family time, that time around the table. And it just takes that emphasis away from the food, and actually it being time together, and that time of having fun and social kind of side of eating, because we, you know, there is so much more to food than the eating of it.
Yeah, taking that pressure off, and
Yeah.
the focus of attention away from you are not eating or that sort of thing into this is just a time for us to be together.
Yeah, absolutely. And that helps mum stay calm. And if mum's calm at the table, then, you know, that children are calmer and more likely to want to explore food a lot more.
And you were saying about being in the kitchen and stealing something off the chopping board when mum isn't looking. But also I think if kids are involved, I remember myself, you know, baking something. If you're baking a gingerbread man or a cake, you want to know, how did it turn out? Is it good? Is it nice? And having a stir, like you can stir the Christmas pudding or whatever it is, to then go, oh, I might just like to try that actually, because I have some ownership. I had input. I'd like to see how it turned out.
Absolutely. And that might not be the first time that they make it. That might be 20 times later, but but yeah, it just supports their confidence and removes the scariness from food. And you know, for a lot of children, food is scary. They don't know what to expect. So you know, they don't have the experiences that we have to draw on, which make us able to understand that a food might feel like or taste like, or, you know, from what we can see and what we can smell and touch. So food is scary for many of them.
And there is that thing about texture of food as well, because I know somebody who's a vegetarian because she can't stand the texture of meat. It's nothing to do with anything else. It's just the texture. Mm. So there's a whole load of factors to consider, aren't there, as to why a child is a fussy eater? Is it the texture they don't like? Is it the smell? Is it that they're worried it's going to get stuck in their throat if they've had an experience previously? So there's all of these things.
Yeah, or even are they even hungry come dinner time? You know, if you know, children have smaller appetites in the evening, they kind of eat the reverse of how, as adults, we have grown to learn to eat. And where we may have our big meal in the evening, actually, they're eating really well, eating like kings at breakfast. And, you know, they don't need very much by the evening. Or if you haven't timed snacks right, they're just not hungry enough to eat at dinner time. So, you know, they might not actually be fussy. It might just be the timing.
Another issue altogether. But it's interesting you're saying there about kids eat more. They front load their food intake for the day, which is what they say we should do. Yeah. And, you know, kids breathe the way they say we should do, and they move the way they say we should do. Perhaps as adults, we need to rethink what we're doing and take some examples from the kids and be more like them.
Children are so intuitive in knowing how hungry they are, how much they need to eat, and in listening to what their bodies are telling them about those hunger and fullness cues, which somewhere along the lines we lose, which is why I was saying about it's really important to develop that positive relationship with food, and kind of step away from those habits that we've got into through our childhood. Somewhere along the lines it was drummed into us, whether that's because, you know, food was scarce after the war, or you know, the learning kind of it has changed, and it needs to evolve again to go back to that more intuitive way of eating, and that building that positive relationship. So yeah, kind of not forcing them to clear the plate, but also not forcing them to try, and letting them to take it on themselves and be in control of what they're eating and how much they're eating and when they're eating it.
And kids are wonderful for that. They're kind of self-regulating, aren't they? We, like you say, we've kind of lost that to a degree. But if they see something on your plate and you seem to be enjoying it, the chances are, like you say, off the chopping board, so much nicer stolen. Like, I'll have one of your chips, thank you. So much nicer than I'll order chips for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and again, it's about putting the fun there and allowing that to happen. Just go with the flow.
Yeah, giving permission for it to be natural.
Yeah, and because mums of fussy eaters are so often stressed about whether they're getting the right nutrients, whether they're eating enough. Again, we're kind of forcing on our children what's going on in our heads rather than thinking, actually, they're just not hungry today, you know, that their appetites fluctuate just like our appetite fluctuates. And yeah, they're just with that intuition, knowing that actually today I do need a whole load of vegetables, but tomorrow I need a load of carb, and that's all I want. All I want is carb. But allowing them to just experiment and go with that flow and see what their bodies are telling them.
And to give ourselves permission. Yeah, to give ourselves permission as the adults to take a step back and, excuse me, to see the broader picture. So to see that yesterday he ate a lot of carbs, but today he's eating a lot of veg. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But he's getting a balance in overall.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We kind of, as adults, again, are kind of stuck on that. I need my 5, 7, 10, whatever it is these days. And I need to have 2 portions of oily fish, and I need to have this, and I need to have 50% on my plate as vegetables and 20% as carbs. And actually, with children, it's a view across a whole week. What you know, rather than worrying about what they've had that day, what have they eaten over the whole week, and just not worrying as well about them not having had the vegetables, because actually colour is really important. Yes. And, you know, they may well have had those same vitamins and minerals that are in vegetables, but through fruit. You know, but you kind of have to, yeah, give that allowance and just allow yourself to relax a little bit.
And to remember as well that kids' needs are different.
Yes.
So they may need more of the carbs and the sugary things, hopefully more natural than too many E numbers, but the fruits and things than we do, because they need that fuel. They're running around, they're growing, all of these differences in their needs and their metabolism and what's going on for them day to day.
Yeah, so where we may need more protein and less carb, they're, you know, more carb based and very little protein really in comparison. So
yeah, it's all fascinating, isn't it? And I believe that you also support charities as well as doing all of this wonderful work. So can you tell us a little bit about which charities you've chosen and why you do this?
Yeah, well, it won't surprise you, I'm sure, to hear that the charities I support are food related. And so I've been volunteering with a charity called Square Food Foundation, and another one called 91 Ways to Build a Global City, and they're both Bristol based but local charities for me. Square Food Foundation supports the local community with cookery classes, and the funds that they get from paid for courses go towards supporting the community, the local schools, adults with learning difficulties or health issues, the elderly and young adults who have been excluded from mainstream education. And it's about bringing together people through food and helping them to learn essential skills and skills that can take them into a workplace if necessary. And during lockdown, Square Food have been cooking and providing free meals to those in need, hundreds and hundreds of meals each week. A lot of the produce that they use in the school is food that would otherwise have gone to waste. So places like Marks and Spencer's, where they can't use the food, they pick that up. People are donating from local allotments and things like that. So you know, there's so much dear to my heart and in that one in particular. And 91 Ways is a really interesting one. Again, they provide cookery classes for local communities and supporting those in need of meals, but also they host banquets which raise funds for the work that they're doing, and it's community cooks who are cooking and providing the food for those cooks, for those banquets, and it's food from their culture. And it's 91 ways because there are 91 different languages and different language communities in Bristol alone at the last count. So yeah, the variety of food that they showcase is absolutely incredible, and it's evenings of coming together and sharing food, but also learning about those communities. And yeah, again, bringing people together through food. And you know, food is a common language, and it's a way of integrating communities.
And for, you know, thousands and thousands of years, ways to bring people together and to seal a deal or to bring peace between two peoples was to break bread together, bread being the staple of life. So there's so much within our culture, within our belief system around food, you know, even just bread, there's so much around that. So yeah, that sounds absolutely fantastic. I've come from Bristol myself, so I know that it's a wonderfully, you know, mixed and diverse, fabulous cultures there that share so many wonderful things. I've been to events in the City Hall where they've done drumming and dance and food. Yeah, so it's very special, I think, to taste those different cultures, literally and figuratively, and to have that little bit of an experience of something different.
Yeah, and for me, it's not just experiencing that culture and meeting new people, but it's a way of traveling the world without, you know, at times I can't do that so much. It really is a lovely way of traveling the world, and I like to do that through food.
And I think they say about language that you can't really understand another language and appreciate all of its nuances and layers of meaning until you understand the culture that it comes from. And I think it's the same for food. When you learn a language, you learn the culture. They go hand in hand. And when you learn more about the food of a culture, you learn about that culture, because so much of that influences what they cook, the way they cook it, everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah, and that brings a richness to your own food because you can draw on those influences, and
it's quite a big thing in restaurants, isn't it, to mix different cultures, two different cultures maybe together, and make a whole new way of cooking food. Sharing that experience.
Yeah, I find some fusion food is quite tricky to get on board with, but I do like borrowing flavors, and cooking techniques is a really nice way of drawing on other cultures. Yeah,
and experimenting and adding whole new ranges, strings to your bow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And just as a last thing, I know that before we went live, you were talking about your book, which sounded so amazing, the whole concept behind it and what it offers. So would you share that with us?
Yeah, of course. So here it is. It's called The Paracetamol, and it's everyday recipes for natural pain relief. And it was a little lockdown project that I worked on with a friend of mine who is a reflexologist specializing in pain management, mostly for migraines and headaches. But some of the things that she works on with her clients is to look not just at the pain, but lifestyle, and one of those things is what food they're eating. And she's a strong believer, as am I, that what we put in our bodies affects how we feel, and for her, the pain that we experience as well. And there are lots of just naturally occurring ingredients which have anti-inflammatory properties which help with pain relief. But what she was finding was that her clients didn't necessarily know how to incorporate those ingredients into their diet on a daily basis, just not being confident enough to cook and what to do with them. So she approached me to help her put together a cookery book. So it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks and drinks, all incorporating naturally inflammatory ingredients such as turmeric, ginger, and other herbs and spices. So it's everything that you can really easily get hands on, even in the supermarket. Simple recipes that absolutely anybody could cook with limited experience and limited equipment. So yeah, I'm really pleased to have brought the book out with her. So.
And where would one get one's hands on this book? Where do you buy it?
You can get it through Amazon.
Okay.
Amazon, yeah. So just through Amazon at the moment. So again, I can share a link to that in
yes, please do.
Yeah, but if anyone's Bristol based and local to me, I don't know if any of your followers are, but yeah, you can always come and bug me for a copy and I will get that to you.
That's absolutely wonderful. And it's been a delight to have you, Sarah. So much to share. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
Talk for hours. We're really good.
I think so, yes. Thank you so much for coming on and for sharing all that you do and for telling us about the book and all of the downloads and things that are available from your website. Yeah,
the website.
Yeah, so if anybody who is watching or who tunes in for the replay, do put in the chat that you're watching the replay. Just use #replay. And if you've got any questions, then put them in there. And I'm sure that either I can relay them to Sarah, or if Sarah sees them herself, she can reply. Because I'm sure that having listened to all of that, you probably have lots to ask or to share. And of course, we'll put up your website as well in the chat beneath this live so that you know where to find Sarah and Kitchen Titbits. So thank you very much for watching, and thank you again, Sarah, for joining me today. Thank you. Goodbye for now.
Bye.